Okay, the trick to scientific notation is we're going to take, let's look at number one, we're going to take this number and we're going to express it as a number between 1 and 9. So that means I need to take the decimal, which is here, and move it to here. So what I'm going to record for my number is 7.926. Then what I have to do is I have to figure out how many times I move the decimal. So that's where my times 10 part comes in. So I'm going to multiply it by an exponent of 10. So let's just see how many times I actually move the decimal. So I move the decimal from here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I moved it 8 times. So I'm going to say times 10 to the 8th. So what we find is this exponent of 10 is basically it tells me how many times I moved the decimal. I had to move it 8 times to get it from here to here. So to get behind here, I had to move it 8 times. It is not, I repeat, not a count of how many zeros there are. There's only 6 zeros, but I moved the decimal 8 times. So let's look at the next one. The decimal is here. I want to move it to here. So I'm going to record this as 4.05 times 10 to the how many times I moved the decimal, and I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I moved it 6 times. Try the next one. Now we're going the other direction, okay? So I'm going to take the decimal from here. Whoops, I'm going to take the decimal from here, and I'm going to move it to here. So I'm going to write down 2.33 times 10 to the how many times did I move the decimal? But let's see, I moved it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I moved it 7 times. So I'm going to say times 10 to the negative 7. Now let's look at number 4. Number 4, what I've got is the decimal is here. I'm going to move it until it's here and then write the rest of it. So what I've got is 9.00 times 10 to the how many times did I move my decimal? And you moved it 1, 2, 3, 4. I moved it 5 times. So since I'm moving it in a smaller direction, I say to the negative 5. Now what I want to do in numbers 5 through 8 is I want to convert to standard numerals. So I want to take it out of scientific notation and write it the other way. So what I do is I look here and say the decimal has been moved 4 times. The negative means that this is a number that is less than 1. So I just want to take the decimal here and I want to move it 4 times that way. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to say 9.5. The decimal, which is right here, is going to get moved 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to draw that if you don't mind. The decimal was here. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put the decimal there and fill in with place-holding zeros. So it should be 0.0095. Now on the next one, what I have is the decimal is here, and I'm going to move it 7 times this way because it's going to be a big number. So I'm going to start off with 8.98. The decimal, which was here, is going to get moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So I end up with having to add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros. And if I want, I can put in commas so I can make it obvious to me. Alright, now I'm going to go to number 7. I'm moving the decimal 5 times. You know, this time I'm not going to go ahead and do the little red underlining things. I'm just going to move the decimal 5 times. Now the decimal is right behind the 4 right now. It's really 4 point. So I'm just going to say 4, and I'm going to move the decimal 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to put in placeholder commas to help me see what it is. And the last one, I'm going to move it 3 times. But I'm going to be moving it 3 times in this direction because it's a number that's less than 1. So what I end up getting is 0.007, which means I moved the decimal, if you think about it, 3 times. 0.007, and I just keep writing it 032. Okay, so to enter this data, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit 7.2, I'm sorry, 7.8, and then what I'm going to say is the second function, and then I'm going to hit the comma button, which is immediately above the 7 we see EE. Now what that does is that brings up the E on my calculator, which really means times 10 to the, and now I'm going to tell it what power it is. So I'm not going to say times of 10, I'm just going to say 9. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply that by the 2.1. And now the way I'm going to say times 10 to the, so I'm simply going to hit the second function and the EE key. And that basically says times 10 to the, and I simply enter the 12. And now you see what I have is 7.8 times 10 to the 9th times 2.1 times 10 to the 12th. And when I hit enter, what I'll get is my answer. Now what I have to keep in mind though is that I don't want to write down this full answer. I'll write it down for right now. 1.638, and when we see E on our calculator, we're allowed to either write it as E or as times 10 to the. Me personally, I like to write it as times 10 to the, so I'm going to say times 10 to the 22nd power. If you want to put E22, that's okay. But what you have to keep in mind is this, that this is not quite correct yet, and the reason is we need to round it for significant figures. We have two significant figures in the number 7.8, and we have two significant figures in 2.1. Therefore, we have to round this to two significant figures. We keep the 1, we keep the 6. Since 3 is less than 5, I'm going to leave it as a 1 and a 6. So the way I should round this, therefore, will be as 1.6 times 10 to the 22nd. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do 2.21 times 10 to the, so we're going to hit the EE button, and now we're going to say, we're going to use this one here, and then we simply enter the exponent, and what you'll see is we have times 10 to the negative 18th. Then we're going to say divided by, and we're going to say 1.406 times 10 to the, which is our EE button again. Now we're going to say 4. You'll see now we have both our values here, and when we say enter, what we'll get is this. So I'm going to write this one down. So what we have here is 1.57183 blah 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 times 10 to the negative 22. The problem is I can't have nearly that many significant figures. I have 3 significant figures here, I have 4 significant figures here, therefore I have to limit myself to 3 significant figures. I'm going to keep the 1, I'm going to keep the 5, and I'm going to keep the 7, and since the 1 is less than 5, I'm going to leave the 7 as it is. So when I round this, what I'll get is 1.57 times 10 to the negative 22nd power. Okay, I'm not going to show you the calculator on these next ones, but let's just go ahead and try this now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and enter this in my calculator. So I'm going to say 1.98, and I'm going to hit the EE button and then hit the 9, divided by 5.5. I'm going to hit the EE button and then I'm going to enter minus 3. And when I do that, what I get is 3.6. I'm just going to leave it as an E. You're allowed to do that. E11. That really means times 10 to the 11th. Alright, now the thing is, in this case, what came out of my calculator was just 2 digits here, and I'm supposed to round to 2 digits, so I'm done. That's kind of easy. Let's go on to the next one. So the next one I've got, I'm going to say 4.44 second function EE, and I'm going to say negative 5 times 6.50 EE minus 8. And when I do that, what comes out of my calculator is 2.886 E minus 12. Now the thing is, I have 3 significant figures here, and I have 3 significant figures here, so I have to round my answer to 3 significant figures. Since this is a 6, I'm going to round the 8 up to a 9, and what I'm going to get is 2.89 e minus 12. Let's try the next one. Here I'm going to say 5.2, hit the EE key, and then 11 times 3.51 EE, and then I'm going to type 7, and what comes out of my calculator is 1.825 E19 times 10 to the 19th. Well, if you think about it, I have 3 significant figures here, I have 2 significant figures here, so I had to round my answer to 2 significant figures. I get to keep the 1, I get to keep the 8. Since this is 4 or less, I don't round up, so I've got 1.8 E19. That's a terrible E. And then I have the last one. I'm going to say 2.87 EE minus, remember that minus button is at the bottom of your calculator near the enter button, 5 divided by 8.215 EE 10. And when I put that in, what comes out is really ugly. It's 3.4930609 E negative 16 times 10 to the negative 16th. Well, how many significant figures do I get to keep? My weakest link is right here. I have 3 significant figures here. I have 4 significant figures here, so I have to round to 3 significant figures. I keep the 3, I keep the 4, I keep the 9. Since this is 4 or less, I leave the 9 alone, and so what I end up with is 3.49, and this time I'm just going to do it the other way, times 10 to the negative 16. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you say E negative 16 or times 10 to the negative 16.